I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer Gold Mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
You're in Victoria. You were in the budget lockup, and did you come staggering out wondering what the hell's going to happen to small business in BC?
Oh, I sure did. Yesterday I was joking around when I got off the ferry that it was so cold that the politicians had their hands in their own pockets. It's an old joke, but unfortunately today they warmed up enough to get into my pocket again. So pretty disappointed. We were calculating probably $5.5 billion worth of new tax increases between this and last October's budget update. Certainly a big chunk of change coming out of business, out of personal pockets. The NDP are doing what the NDP do best, and that's spend money.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess the biggest concern would be the imposition of a healthcare tax on employers.
Yeah, this one is very upsetting to me. As you know, I spent the past 6 or 7 years at the Taxpayers Federation fighting to get rid of MSP. Took years to get the politicians on board. Finally, in their campaign platforms, both the Liberals and the NDP said they would cut the MSP in half immediately, which they did, and then that the other half would be gone within a short period of time. Today, though, we discovered that the NDP aren't going to cut that second half. They're just going to transfer to a different kind of tax, a payroll tax. And most frustrating to me, over the next 3 years, government is going to lose for that second half of the MSP cut. Government was going to lose about $1.7 billion in revenue, but they're going to double dip. They're going to keep collecting a proportion of that and collect the new healthcare tax. That'll bring in about $3.1 billion. So government's actually going to be $1.5 billion to the good over the next 3 years. It's fair to say that the budget will be balanced on the backs of small businesses paying these payroll taxes for healthcare.
Can you explain what's going to happen and how much it's going to cost small business?
Well, first of all, they've defined small business as anything under $500,000 a year in payroll. So, for us at ICBA, this is a big concern because, you get 4 or 5 guys working a crew, in construction being so red hot right now with overtime and whatnot, that puts them over that threshold. And essentially, government's going to take 2% of your payroll and put it on this, put it towards healthcare, put it towards replacing the MSP. So, if you have $1 million payroll, you're talking about $20,000 in taxes, just for the honor of employing people. Payroll taxes are job killers. They slow job growth. This is going to be a big problem for the BC economy going forward.
Can you see a small business cutting enough jobs to get below that threshold?
Sure, I can see them cutting jobs, cutting hours. I mean, most small businesses are already reeling from, the carbon tax increases, minimum wage increases, the fact that households making $150,000 a year or more, they've seen a personal income tax increase. There's CPP increases coming from the federal government. There's property tax increases. It's a lot of kind of problems for small businesses. So they're going to have to look to cut costs in order to make this all work, and that means cutting hours, maybe even cutting jobs.
Are small businesses not the engine of job creation in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely they are. For us, our membership is 90% of our membership are small businesses. Half the jobs in Canada are small business jobs. I mean, this really is what drives the economy. This is what's so frustrating with what the NDP are doing. By moving into a payroll tax and only exempting the smallest of small businesses, they're really going to hurt a lot of these job creators.
Could this drive jobs and businesses outside of BC?
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of weird things happen now. So one of the ideas that was being floated as a way around it is to, devolve into smaller business units. Have a bunch of smaller businesses that are, $475,000 payrolls, and maybe that's the way you could get around it. I'm not sure that's going to happen. The big problem, of course, is the United States. The Trump tax cuts have just juiced their economy. It's made it even more attractive to go there. And if you go there, you don't have to deal with this payroll tax. You don't have to deal with carbon taxes. You don't have to deal with high income taxes, high corporate income taxes. The only thing you have to deal with is a guy with weird hair in the Oval Office, and a lot of businesses are willing to do that right now.
Jordan, what was the overall impression by business on this new BC budget?
I think there was a lot of concern. They're expecting $200 million a year surpluses for the next 3 years. That includes the ICBC so-called dumpster fire. So, that's good news, but we need everything to go right in order to hit those $200 million. And there was not a lot of ideas on how to grow the economy. There was nothing in there about forestry, nothing about mining, nothing about pipelines, nothing about energy, nothing about responsible resource development. So, you kind of wonder what it feels like is that the NDP has put the economy on autopilot, but meanwhile they're flying us into a bunch of tax turbulence. This could be a big problem for a business going forward. And look, if a recession hits, or if housing prices fall like the NDP hope, and all of a sudden the property transfer taxes aren't rendering the kind of money they used to, this government's going to slip into the red very quickly, very hard, very fast.
What about forest fire protection? Did they budget a lot of money for that?
No, they have a big contingency. They did have a little bit of money to help people get back on their feet after last year's forest fires. But again, another bad forest fire season could send BC into the red. So they're on a razor's edge. They better hope that economic growth continues to go, which is a bit of a coin flip right now whether that's the case.
Did they do anything to encourage small business?
Help for small business. Well, I mean, I guess you could argue, if you include small business to include childcare providers, then yeah, I guess, the fact that they're going to transfer a bunch of money to licensed childcare providers, that might, that could be considered good for small business. But, for our kind of businesses in construction, we were looking at different things. The Patello Bridge is funded in this budget, but there's nothing for the Massey Tunnel replacement, so that project seems dead in the water now. There's only $1 billion total for all the transit infrastructure in BC. That's barely a down payment on Surrey Light Rail and on the UBC subway. So, yeah, they could do a whole lot more to keep people working, and but they've decided to spend this money on social housing, things like that. It'll be interesting to see if they can get the kind of partnerships that they claim that they want to see put in place for that.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Bateman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Bateman's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at batemanresources.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, they do promise to put more money into social housing and affordable housing. Will that see a lot more construction jobs, or will that be about the same as we have now in Vancouver area construction?
Yeah, Vancouver area construction is starting to dip. It's starting to slow a little bit. So, and this is kind of what happens in the cyclical nature of residential construction. So it's starting to slow ever so slightly, but some of those folks will be able to move over, I guess, and move on, work on these government projects. the big question there, though, is, provincial government doesn't have a lot of land in these urban areas, so they're counting on municipalities, property taxpayers. They're counting on churches, faith-based groups, other NGOs to provide that land. I'm not sure, given this market and how robust it is, that it's really realistic to expect all of these folks to put their money in, to put their land in into this. So it'll be interesting to see if they get any kind of uptake whatsoever on that.
They said one of the things that they plan to do is deal with mega homes on agricultural land. That could be a concern to people worried about farming. However, a lot of people think they'll just find another loophole in that. Yeah,
that was an interesting one. There wasn't a lot of detail around that. Clearly they've identified a bit of a problem there. And look, if you're going to have the agricultural land reserve, it should probably be farmed, right? The truth is, though, in the Lower Mainland, very few of those farms are actually in operation. Most of them are country estates. It's the ALR is sacred to the NDP. I mean, that is, from the holy book of Davy Barrett himself. So they're very unlikely to actually tinker around much with it, other than to try to make it as restrictive as possible to do anything other than farm it. So it'll be interesting to see. A lot of farmland people don't realize butts up against big urban areas. Where I live in Langley, there's a farm right next to Langley Memorial Hospital. If that farm starts spreading manure or other things, patients at LNH would be the first to complain. These are the kind of issues that don't get talked about enough when we talk about the ALR.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. We have some irony going on between two NDP governments in Alberta and BC. We have Alberta ending the sale of BC wines, BC refusing to let Alberta oil come to the coast in a new pipeline. Now we have BC filing a complaint about trade being restricted between two provinces because of the Alberta wine ban. Do you see the irony in this?
I do see the irony in it. I really wish John Horgan would release the official complaint, because I'm not sure what leg they have to stand on, because liquor and liquor enforcement boards are actually exempted from that pact. I'm very curious as to what he's arguing here, because my reading of that pact. Look, I'm not a lawyer. It's certainly interprovincial trade law is a very specific genre, but I'm curious what he thinks he's arguing on, because it looks like they're exempt. Nothing in this budget on the trade war. There's $29 million for buy BC agriculture stuff, so I guess you could make the argument that for that. In fact, that and $16 million for arts are the only kind of what they call the growing the economy funding. Very, very thin there when it comes to supporting industry or trying new innovative things. Nothing on the legal side. And my understanding is Rachel Notley was pretty quiet today, which I think is a missed opportunity for her. She could have put a lot of pressure, stolen a lot of the Premier's thunder on budget day if she had wanted to.
Has BC told us how much they're spending in legal fees to try to stop the federally regulated pipeline?
No, they haven't, and no line item in today's budget on it. It'll be one of those things that they'll hide from us. They'll call it solicitor-client privilege. And maybe years from now, once it's done, we could probably maybe get an FOI request back. But even then, it's kind of 50-50 whether they'll ever provide it. But, fair to say hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars will be spent on all these different legal challenges.
Any word on big increases to business for their car insurance fees?
Yeah, ICBC, they didn't talk about what the rate increases are going to be, but very clearly ICBC is a big problem. Within 2 years, they think that their reforms to ICBC and, I would say, fair increase or insurance rate increases, they should put them back $1 billion the other way. We will wait and see whether or not that's actually possible. Chances are, get ready for big rate increases from ICBC.
Do you wonder where the previous Liberal government spent the money that should have gone to ICBC?
Yeah, I mean, they did take money out. But at the same time, look, ICBC, one of the reasons you had a credit corporation there was so that you could generate money for government programs. Now, did the BC Liberals run it properly? No. Did the NDP run it properly before them? Absolutely not. And did the Socreds run it properly before that? No. The big problem with ICBC is you've always had politicians in charge. And, insurance is a very specific world, very difficult for politicians to, truly grasp and understand, what to do and what's supposed to go on there. So, look, I've said before, the best thing to do is to get the politicians out of ICBC altogether. It's not a business government needs to be in anymore. And in fact, every other jurisdiction in British Columbia or in Canada has lower car insurance rates than BC. And it's because many of them are private insurance. There's competition to keep rates low.
Would you feel that would be a good move for small business in British Columbia?
Yeah, absolutely. If you could actually start to, how often have we heard about businesses on the BC-Alberta border insuring vehicles in Alberta? They're doing that specifically to dodge these kind of high rates. And you can't blame them. I mean, it's expensive to run a business, and if you can save money on your fleet, think how expensive it is for you and I with one car or two cars. Imagine having 15, 20, 100 vehicles that you have to insure. It just makes sense to try to find as much value as possible.
Well, my parents' fleet insurance for the farm for 9 vehicles was less than one vehicle driven in Vancouver. at their farms in Alberta.
Yes. It's mystifying to me how the NDP, and frankly the Liberals before them, can continue with a straight face to claim that somehow ICBC rates are competitive and it's a great deal. We get better value than other provinces do. It just does not bear out. The national regulator, you don't have to be a Fraser Institute guy to think this. You don't have to be a Canadian Taxpayers Federation alum. Just look at the national regulator for car insurance. Nonpartisan groups, they'll tell you BC has the highest car insurance rates in Canada. And it's because ICBC is run so badly and has no competition.
Jordan, anything else you want to throw in on the provincial budget today?
Yeah, debt's continuing to go up. It looks like about $650 million a quarter over the next 2 years. So, for 3 years, that's not great. We're still on that path to an $80 billion debt that Christy Clark started us down. So that's, don't buy into any NDP hand-wringing over debt anymore since they have continued on with her kind of practice. Other than that, there was a lot of social groups in budget lockup this year. They were very, very, very excited over some of the announcements. I sure wish I did more to make sure that economic growth continues, because I think the only way to pay for this long term is through economic growth. You just can't keep relying on the beleaguered taxpayer to pony up more year after year after year.
Jordan, thank you so much for taking your valuable time and spending some of it with us.
Hey, my pleasure, Jim. Always good to talk BC budget with you.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association, their website, icba.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Any questions for the show or our guests can be sent to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.